now move on to the next talk by Dr. Henrik Skoll. So, he is the chairman of ophthalmology at the University of Basel and also a world-renowned expert in inherited retinal diseases. Over to you, Dr. Henrik.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, and a big thank to the organizers for the honor to present here in Delhi, India. I'm going to present on potential treatments for inherited retinal diseases. Of note, I'm also serving as the Chief Medical Officer of Belite Bio. To date, more than 300 genes have been identified that would cause monogenic retinal disease, but not all of the genes are equal. ABCA4 is the most prevalent disease gene, and it accounts for about 30% of all autosomal recessively inherited retinal dystrophies. ABCA4 has a cumulative carrier frequency of 2.5% in population of European descent. So it's actually rare, but not that rare. The audience is very familiar with Stargardt disease, as it was described by Carl Stargardt in 1909. It's the most common juvenile macular dystrophy, and it can manifest as early as 5 years or as late as 70 plus years. You just have seen a fundus photograph, but there's a very nice imaging tool that we use for Stargardt disease, and that is autofluorescence imaging. Not only because it produces such nice images as we see here, but it allows to actually visualize the problem, namely this accumulation of toxic bisretinoids that light up on fundus autofluorescence imaging, and also the consequence of these toxicity to the retina, namely the loss of RPE cells, and that would result in a loss of the signal that we see in the center of the retina. When it comes to therapy development, over decades there was a lack of outcome measures that we actually could use to test efficacy of treatments, but that has, let's say, cured by the ProgStar study that developed outcome measures for clinical efficacy testing. What was the ProgStar study? It was a worldwide multi-center natural history study performed in 7 centers in the United States and 3 centers in Europe, with a central coordinating center at the Wilmer Eye Institute and a central reading center in Los Angeles. We had seen patients every 6 months for 2 years and included microperimetry testing for visual function, and for imaging we used a spectralis, and we obtained spectral domain OCT and fundus autofluorescence imaging. In the ProgStar study, the ProgStar study group was able to quantify autofluorescence lesions with the central reading center and came up with 2 definitions. One, DDAF, definitely decreased autofluorescence, which is a level of darkness compared to the optic nerve head of 90 to 100% of darkness, and a similar lesion that we coin questionably decreased autofluorescence, QDF, with a darkness level between 50 and 90%. And we could now track such lesions over time, and ProgStar report number 17, published 2 years ago, could show that there was a mean progression rate of about 3/4 of a square millimeters per year over an observation period of 24 months. So we have an outcome measure, and now we can go into therapy development. And when we think about therapy development in retinal dystrophies, and we think along photoreceptor cell degeneration along the x-axis that we see here, there are 2 major approaches that we can take. Number 1, pharmacotherapy, and number 1, gene therapy. And I would like to present prominent examples of one each. Let's start with pharmacotherapy. This actually is in late phase development for both Stargardt disease and geographic atrophy, and the compound is named Tinlarebant. A little bit of background here. The visual cycle, one of the best understood signal cascades in the human body. It's also called the vitamin A cycle, and we see vitamin A on the bottom right, also called all-trans retinol. And all-trans retinol is needed in actually to produce the visual pigment that you see on the upper left, namely 11-cis-retinal, that is part of rhodopsin. And there's this constant recycling of the visual pigment, but it needs vitamin A. And vitamin A is taken up from the circulation. Vitamin A is bound to retinol binding protein 4, that's the black dot on the lower right, RBP4, and also TTR. And there's a specific receptor that is abundantly expressed in the eye, not elsewhere, but in the eye. And that receptor, the RBP4 receptor, allows to suck in vitamin A into the photoreceptors and the retinal pigment epithelium. If the ABCA4 gene is deficient, if it's mutated, then there is a build-up of all-trans retinal that cannot be further processed, and that is very toxic. Plus, there is an accumulation of bisretinoids, including A2E, and these are very toxic. Tinlarebant is a novel once-a-day oral tablet designed to bind RBP4 as a means to specifically reduce retinol delivery to the eye in order to slow or halt the accumulation of bisretinoids. So what's the mechanism of action? We see that here on the lower part of the slide. Tinlarebant binds to RBP4, and this is then eliminated through the kidneys, which means there's less all-trans retinol available for the RBP4 receptor, and that means we have a lowering of vitamin A in the photoreceptors, and that means lowering of toxic bisretinoids. After preclinical development, that led into clinical development, and we see the pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic profile on the right that was tested on 13 patients in Taiwan and Australia in an open label fashion. Patients would take 5 milligrams per day, and we see that the 5 milligram dose was effective to reduce RBP4 level by a mean of approximately 80% to baseline. You see on the right, you see how the compound goes up after administration. It stays up there, that's the blue line, and you see the red line is a perfect mirroring and allows to reduce that level to more than 80%. And if you could discontinue the drug, you see that on the right on the graph, then you have a return to baseline also for RBP4. What about efficacy? So the efficacy was tested against a subset out of the ProgStar study. None of the patients that went into the trial had any DDF lesions to begin with. There was only QDF at baseline. And 5 of 12 subjects actually never developed DDF lesions. The ones that developed DDF lesions could be compared to the progression that was observed in the ProgStar study. So you see the progression rate in the left graph in red of those patients that were treated in the phase 2 study. And those patients showed a progression rate of 0.5 square millimeters per year over time. And that was compared to the ProgStar study group. And you see that the progression rate was essentially double in the natural history of pretty much exactly 1 square millimeter over that period of time. And that difference was highly statistically significant. What about safety? The drug was safe and well tolerated in these adolescent Stargardt patients. The treatment produced an 80% reduction of RBP4. There was delayed dark adaptation and xanthopsia as the most common drug-related ophthalmic adverse events. All instances of such AEs were mild and transient, and there were no severe or moderate drug-related AEs reported and no AEs requiring discontinuation of the treatment. Also, there were no clinically significant findings in relation to vital signs, physical exam, cardiac health, or organ functions. The drug is being tested in 2 registration trials. One is fully recruited. All patients have already completed a 12-month visit. And there's another registration trial called Dragon 2 that is currently recruiting in Japan, in the United States, and the United Kingdom. I would like to conclude with gene therapy. When you think about monogenic disease, that appears to be the most obvious thing to do, but keep in mind ABCA4 is a very large gene and more than 2,000 mutations have been described in ABCA4 alone. I will present on high-efficiency base editing for Stargardt disease, and that was tested in mice, non-human primates, and human retinal tissue. The most common mutation in ABCA4 is the G2A point mutation G1961E, and that is actually a prominent mutation accounting for about 15% of all mutations in Stargardt disease. And this is a potential target for adenine base editing. So the idea is that we would correct this one spelling error, if you will, in the human genome, namely the G1961E mutation, that would result in now a functional protein that was dysfunctional before. That was tested in human retinal organoids, which are little human retinas grown in the dish for 200 days, human retinal and RPE explants from multi-organ donors, and a knock-in mouse model, a humanized ABCA4 G1961E mouse. This slide is a complex slide, but it shows work over 2 years where the vector elements were improved for editing the efficiency of the construct. On the top, you see that the results in retinal organoids. On the lower half, you see the results in photoreceptors in RPE. And that resulted to an editing rate of about 40% in the most important cells, namely cone photoreceptors. That then went into a non-human primate study. And those primates were operated on with a standard vitrectomy procedure, and the compound was delivered subretinally. In some of the monkeys, the fovea remained non-detached, in others the fovea was detached, so we could compare the two. And this summarizes the results. On the left, we see the efficiency of actually correcting this spelling error, of correcting this missense mutation in the human genome. And that could be achieved in about 75% of the cone photoreceptors. However, and that is shown on the right, in the fovea the efficiency was much lower, and it's still unclear why we did not reach that high of efficiency in the human fovea, which is the most important target, obviously. In summary, the most prevalent IRD gene is ABCA4, accounting for about 30% of all cases. Clinical evaluation of the progression of DDAF has allowed this endpoint to be established for pivotal studies. The pharmacological reduction of the availability of vitamin A to the retina with Tinlarebant has shown significant therapeutic effects with very good tolerability in phase 2 studies and is currently evaluated in registration trials with the name DRAGON 1 and DRAGON 2. And base editing of the most frequent mutation in Stargardt disease, namely the G1961E mutation, developed using human retinal explants, iPSC-derived RPE, and human retinal organoids, currently allows an editing rate of around 75% in cone photoreceptors in the primary retina, with significantly lower editing in the fovea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muna.
Doc, I have a question on Tinlarebant and the dark adaptation issues. Would you expect it to be cumulative because your studies were all 24 months and these are young patients? So
it's a good point. This would not accumulate. So the concentration of Tinlarebant obviously in the blood stays the same, of RBP4 also stays the same in the blood. So in actual fact, patients accommodate to that problem. The thing is that patients with Stargardt disease are used to somewhat reduced dark adaptation in the first place because it's part of the disease process. So actually, the fact that we observed dark adaptation problems was because it was tested, not because patients complained about it, right? But it's part of the mechanism of action. Keep in mind that dark adaptation is a sign of road photoreceptor, let's say, delayed accumulation of vitamin A. The most important in Stargardt disease, obviously, is to save the cones.
thank you.
Yeah, can I ask one question? Very nice talk, and I could see the big difference in the Tinlarebant treated arm and the control arm. But after 18 months, some increase in DDAF autofluorescence in the treated arm as well. There's some increase in the autofluorescence. So is that a concern, or do you
It's
think
currently not a concern. We are awaiting the phase 3 data. The study will be completed by the end of the year, and 104 patients have been treated with the drug in the DRAGON 1 trial. Regarding safety, by the way, because it's also being tested in AMD patients, more than 400 patients have been enrolled and being treated with Tinlarebant. So currently we don't know, because this is based on just a dozen patients with Stargardt disease. We don't know how linear that reduction will be in the future.